Hi, I'm Bartosz from Cyrus. This is the fourth episode in a series about sound quality, and in this episode myself, David, Stuart and Kerry will talk about grip and control. In one of the previous episodes I talked about double bass. Let us now turn our attention to electric bass. So electric bass usually operates within the lower end of the frequency range audible to humans. In order to reproduce these frequencies, the amplifier has to set the speaker cone in a heavy motion to create sufficient sound pressure. That requires a lot of energy that has to be supplied within an instant. If you look at bass players like Marcus Miller, who is one of the true masters of the instrument, they produce and kill those low frequency notes extremely fast. What we do not want from the system is to prolong them. The speed of low bass is always a challenge for the system. You need a lot of power to move your woofer, and what some people do not realize, it's even more difficult to stop the cone once it has started moving heavily. To me, if an amp can set the cone in motion and then stop it quickly, it possesses the so-called grip and control. This is how I understand it. So what about you guys? David?
Yeah, Marcus Miller's a really good example. I always think of it, when you've got fast bass transients, I always think of it a bit like running into a hurricane with a dustbin lid in your hand. It gives you an idea of how difficult it is to kind of move those bass cones quickly and also to stop them on a dime. You can get a lot of overhang on bass frequency unless you've got really tight grip of the bass. A great example.
Stuart, what do you think?
I think from my point of view there are only certain types of music that really illustrate this well. So certain types of music and that obviously include certain instruments. In a band, bass and drums particularly clearly will be probably the two most prominent instruments that would do that. And one thing that I would say is that when this is right, so there's never any question over this. I think when we get a component that's doing this well, immediately. And I think again through the XR tuning we've had an experience. An example would be the Lord track, which was Everybody Wants to Rule the World. It's a cover of that, which is on the Hunger Games Catching Fire soundtrack. And that is a track that will demonstrate this really well. Again, believe this is probably linked back to timing. None of these characteristics, I guess, are independent of each other. They all interact. So it's not that you've got a separate control for each one of these and we just sit down for 10 minutes, turn everything up to 11 and then it's all done. It's all a pleasant mix of getting this balance right. But I think as well as that, you can also get this effect from a large-scale orchestra, something like that. Large-scale orchestral music will demonstrate this too. Something like that.
Kerry, so what do we need from the technical point of view to get this grip and control right? Which element of the system should we especially focus on? Amplifiers, speakers, or maybe something else?
It's total system transparency. A system's only ever going to be as good as its weakest part. So you can have the best speakers in the world. If your electronics are not delivering the goods, you're not going to get them, and vice versa. But to drill into it on a slightly more technical content, to get this grip and control right, again, a big chunk of it is down to power management within the amplifiers. So as David mentioned, you've got this speaker driver that we've accelerated pretty fast to create the start of the note. We've then got to stop it. So you need that power available instantly to force it to stop. So it's all about speed of delivering the power ultimately. One thing a lot of people do, especially if they're not used to hearing a system that has great control over a speaker is they go, well, that doesn't sound very punchy, which is quite an interesting word they use, where they're so used to a speaker basically carrying on and over exaggerating the bass, so you get more of a punch. And if they get used to listening to that type of setup, when you go to a system that really is well controlled and holding the driver and you lose that, it takes them a moment to get used to that difference. And the immediate thing for some people could be, well, that's a negative, but actually if you really listen to it, now you're hearing what is actually on the recording and not what your system is creating. So it's that level of just everything we do is we're trying to just dig deeper into that source material. We want to show you the ultimate sort of last grain of resolution we can pull out of it. And that's what we try and do with our listening tests.
So one important lesson to take away is that we all need a bit of experience and education to be able to evaluate a system properly. And in many cases our expectations change over time as our hobby evolves. That's all for now. Join us next time and do not forget to subscribe. Bye.